Hi. So today we are going to talk about narcissism. This is a hefty subject, so I'm probably going to do more than one of these. I am I've been debating on how I wanted to start this. And so I think I'm going to start by basically just reading over a paper that I had done at the beginning of the year, and in some ways it was really eye-opening for me. So I think maybe it'll be a little bit helpful. During the research phase of this, it was really like, oh, okay. I thought I knew a lot about narcissism as it was narcissistic personality disorder, but it seems like there's always more to learn, which is why I could do more than one of these, and I will, especially if people are actually interested. But yeah, so today we're going to be very casual because it's just us. And hopefully the background's not going to get weird since I've got a blur on there. I kind of like the blur. I'm still figuring out my setup because I don't want it to be too distracting. And I don't know how the lighting's going to turn out. The camera is supposed to be the best webcam, but I hope that once it's uploaded, it looks good. The quality's there because I don't know how to set up my regular camera for this. Anyway, technology aside, was I am not tech savvy at all. I kind of have I don't know if it's allergies or what, but hopefully my voice is not going to cut out during this, but as usual, I am not interested in having these videos overly edited. I want it to be like a natural conversation and me reading off of what I have written. I will be looking that way to read that, but I will also probably be commenting asides and things like that. I don't want this to sound like a boring lecture, so hopefully it won't, but it might. Anyway, um anyway, let's just do this. In the empirical study, hunting lovers, narcissists keep trophies from their past relationships. I didn't know that before. They explore the reasoning behind those with narcissistic personality disorder keeping trophies from past lovers. Ooh, okay. First, I should say for those who hear the term narcissist a lot, but don't really know much about it, the term gets thrown around pretty much constantly now. And I just want to be clear before I get further into this that people can have narcissistic traits and tendencies, but that doesn't mean that they have narcissistic personality disorder. That is an official and intense personality disorder. It is not something that should be thrown around lightly, but it is also something that is difficult to diagnose because people with narcissistic personality disorder tend to not get treatment. They tend to not get testing either. A lot of the times, if they are going into any type of therapy, it is with their partner. So they're not really there to actually, okay, let's just typically, they're not there to actually change behaviors. They're not there to actually get any sort of self awareness. It often, not always, but often is when it happens when that partner is done. They can't deal with it anymore. They've had enough. They're at their breaking point. And then the narcissist says, well, okay, let's go to therapy. And that does not mean that they're willing to put in the work or any of the healing at all. And again, people with that type of personality, they do not like to be called out. So if they have a good therapist who will call them out, yeah, it doesn't mean that they're actually going to change. There are some cases where the narcissist does become aware to the point where they actually care enough to I don't know what that was, but that freaked me out. I don't know if Zoom something fell. Anyway, um, sorry. They might become self-aware to the point where they say, "You know what? I do wanna get help. I do want to start recognizing what my triggers are and try to rein it in as much as possible." It is rare, but it is possible. So I just wanna kind of acknowledge, like, I don't wanna give somebody that's going through it too much hope because it's not on you to decide that for them. People are only gonna change when they are willing to put in the work to change themselves, no matter who it is. And sometimes it doesn't really matter how like, you can't love somebody out of their toxicity. It's just not possible. And just because they are putting in the work doesn't mean that they are going to be totally healed and they'll no longer be harmful and they'll no longer exhibit abusive behaviors. It doesn't mean that everything will suddenly be perfect. It is a very difficult situation to be in. Just want to acknowledge that. This episode is probably going to be long. Sorry. But again, hefty subject, one that I can make several attempts at. I'm going to get back to the paper now. One potential hypothesis is that narcissists have the keepsakes to boost their self esteem, a trophy to remind themselves they had such a prized partner. In their mind, only someone of value could win such a prize. It also keeps the connection to their exes. Quote, we propose that after dissolving romantic relationships, both grandiose and vulnerable, vulnerable narcissistic being covert narcissist is another word. Individuals may want to keep inanimate objects associated with their ex partners as symbols of their mating success, i.e., trophies. Consistent with this hypothesis, the results of two cross sectional correlational studies, it gives a few numbers there. I recommend checking it out if you want to look further into the statistics of this study. Showed that while grandiose and vulnerable narcissism are not related to the nostalgic value of keepsakes from past relationships, they predict the perception of these objects as trophies. The effects the effect holds when controlled for gender and self esteem. We further discuss the mechanism by which trophy keepsakes may bolster positive self views in both grandiose and vulnerable narcissistic individuals. End quote. I think it's creepy to have trophies. Like, I was telling my friend about this back when I was researching this, and she said, "You mean like serial killers?" Yeah, that's what it feels like. Anyway, and for some people, it's their shared children, unfortunately. But if you are dating someone who you suspect is a narcissist, do they have any trophies from their exes? Did they keep anything from their ex that they can't get rid of? That they hold some sort of value? And I'm not saying that just because you hold something from your ex, that makes you a narcissist and it's a trophy. Some things really are sentimental. This is different. I hope that it's coming across that this is different. Anyway, I need to mute this so I can clear my throat real quick. I'm sorry. How do I mute it? Oh my God. And I made the screen go away. We're professionals over here. We, as in me by myself, and I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Anyway, I don't know if in this paper I make any sort of distinction on the difference between a covert and an overt narcissist. Oh, that could be a video in itself, so I will just hold off on that. But just know there is a difference, and you can probably tell by the name overt, covert, what some of those differences are. But again, this is already going to be pretty long, so I'm going to move on. There is the potential that the narcissists have the inanimate objects from their past partners, or perhaps something that was connected to them, for example, a special tie they wore on a significant date that matched their ex's dress. Quote, to repair their self esteem after relationship dis- dissolution. Don't ever come to me for pronunciation, and I will stumble over my words sometimes, okay? It just is what it is. Trophy keepsakes perceived as symbols of mating skills or importance as being chosen by someone of extraordinary qualities may bolster a person's self esteem even when the ex partner has gone. In other words, trophy keepsakes may be viewed as a coping resource that the collector uses in time of need. End quote. So, again, just because for that example, the tie collection, if that's really something that's just a cute little keepsake, it's not the same thing. And just to be clear on that, because there are a lot of people that like to have little keepsakes. And some people are okay with that when they get in a partnership with someone who keeps things like that. Some are okay with that, some are not. It really comes down to what you and your partner agree on what you're comfortable with, and it should never be to a point where if they say that makes them uncomfortable, that it's an issue, unless it's related to children. If it is keepsakes involving children, um, old family photos, scrapbooks, like whatever the case may be, if it is involving children, that should be a non-negotiable in my opinion. I don't think anybody that shares kids with someone should have to give up any keepsakes that involve their children or child. Obviously, it could just be one child. And like, you can't erase the fact that those are memories for the children. Okay? Let's just be clear on that. Thank you. Covert, vulnerable, and overt narcissists keep trophies from their ex partners, a quality that is not well known, but is apparently one of the common traits of the personality disorder. The covert narcissist is more likely to idolize their ex lover as a way to boast about themselves. Seeing it as they got someone beautiful, successful, popular, etc., must mean they, the narcissist, are special to have gotten a conquest of such value. Now, oftentimes, it's when they look back, they'll kind of romanticize that relationship after the fact that it's over. They'll start seeing it differently than when they were in it. And certainly people that are in a relationship with a narcissist will wonder, were they better to their exes? Like, why are they being so bad to me? No, it's not a you thing. Okay. It's not a you issue. That's just how they are. One question in this study was whether or not the keepsakes as a trophy from ex partners are a stimulus of nostalgia. That proved not necessarily to be the case. That was far less likely for an overt narcissist, but neither showed significant confirmation. It was more likely that there was a connection through a willingness to reconnect to that partner. Keepsakes could be associated with their ex partner as keeping a connection with them. Quote, our results indicate that grandiose and vulnerable narcissism overlap not only on the perception of keepsakes from past relationships as trophies, but also on keepsakes as substitutes for ex partners. The effect is somewhat unexpected because the perception of keepsakes as substitutes for ex partners usually reflect communal needs, whereas both grandiose and vulnerable narcissism are negatively related to communion. Although generally inanimate objects are perceived as partner substitutes, are used to satisfy communal needs for closeness and intimacy, it is possible that these objects may be used to satisfy agentic needs too. It is vital to note that the perception of an inanimate object as a substitute for an ex partner did not refer to the intentions and motivations behind the use of the object. Rather, it denoted the perception of the experience of being with an ex partner, i.e., what it was like being together. If the experience consisted of a partner's derogation, or and boasts in self-esteem. Ke- Maybe it's because I'm dyslexic, but I don't like the way that's written. My brain is like, ugh. Anyway, keepsakes might help to relieve these, rel relive, relieve. It says relieve these experiences. End quote. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, reading these, I like reading these out, but yeah, dyslexic, and I've had some things with my brain, so it's a little bit tricky sometimes. I do try to read quickly just because I don't want it to be like rah, 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 just boring droning on. And I like to hear things faster. I speed things up. I'm weird. Wait, it's whatever. Anyway, both covert. Ah, that's a typo. I said convert. Oh, that bothers me. Oh, anyway, it's supposed to be both covert and overt narcissists keep their keepsakes as trophies, but it is more likely for male narcissists than female narcissists to feel the need to have them. For covert narcissists, they are more likely to keep them as a boast of their self esteem, but they also like to have it as a connection to their ex partners. Female narcissists did not feel as much need to keep any trophies. It is interesting to note the differences there because not only do narcissists, no matter their gender, have acute similarities, yet here is something that is different. It is also noteworthy because typically women are more likely to want keepsakes as nostalgia from their previous partners than men. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting because I'm just obviously pausing on this paper for a second. I thought it was extra interesting that female narcissists didn't tend to keep keepsakes as trophies as much as male narcissists did when the narcissistic personality disorder is almost like a carbon copy of each other. There are not that many differences. There are so many things that are so alike that you just like, that's crazy. That's so wild. How are they so alike? But but then there are some differences. And the fact that female narcissists are less likely to have keepsakes, but women in general normally like having keepsakes. Some do anyway. I don't, but some do. I would say, aren't they a little bit more likely? Aren't women typically more likely to want to keep little keepsakes, nostalgic stuff, and little cute things from a relationship than men would be? Maybe not, but it's kind of interesting when it comes to narcissistic personality disorder that they somewhat different on that. Diff, diff, they are somewhat different on that. I got there eventually. Perhaps because there was an emotional bond, whereas for the narcissist, they do not have the same thought processes and sentimentality as those without narcissistic personality disorder. Because narcissists keep these items, it is curious what else they have an attachment to when it comes to their ex partners. This is something the study could go further into examining. Oh, I wish they would. I haven't found it. If they have, if you know of that, please leave in the comments. I need to know. I need to read this. Some questions to consider are: do they listen to music that reminds them of their ex partners? Do they like to rewatch TV or movies they used to enjoy with their ex partners? Do they check up on their ex partners? Do they stay in secret contact with their ex partners or friends of their ex partners? Why am I blurry? Camera, hello. I hate it when it does that. Okay, well, I don't know how to fix it. Is it worse because I've got the blurred background? It would be interesting to incorporate the meaning of it if the answers are yes. Could it be furthering their sense of self rather than nostalgia, like in this study? Moreover, do they keep all of these things a secret from their current partners? I'm going to say yes. My vote is yes, they do keep it secret because they love keeping secrets. For example, even if it was an ex partner, did they ever admit to any of these exes before them that they kept or did those things? Considering narcissists' habitual lying and secret keeping, that is unlikely. Yes, I wrote that in my paper. Because if you've ever dealt with them, you already know. You already know how it is. Okay? Let's not dance around it. But it would be interesting to have more studies on this. And it would just be nice to get some self aware narcissists. And by self aware, I think they all know what they're doing. They do, and they can control it because if they didn't, then they wouldn't only lose their control to the people like their partner or their children. They would lose control at work. They would lose control with their friends. And that might be a little more likely with an overt narcissist, but still, they can absolutely control it. I have watched it. I have watched it happen. So, mhm. Anyway, the ones that are actually, yes, I have that, and this is the truth, then it reminds me of that guy, but I can't think of his name, that I follow. He is like he says in every video that he's a diagnosed narcissistic, and he has been in therapy, and he tells it what it's like from the narcissist point of view. And sometimes he does both, where he'll say victim versus narcissist side. And it's so interesting. Need people like that to do these studies to learn more, but the videos alone are amazing. If I don't forget, I would like to add his handle to this. That way you can check it out because if you are dealing with anyone that is a narcissist, it can be so helpful. It can be validating. It can be healing. It can be eye opening. And it's also really refreshing to see the self awareness and admitting to things. Really refreshing for the, yeah, admitting to things. Anyway, while this is an excellent study, the potential for further questions is a great addition. There is more that can be explored, and that is always exciting with studies. I don't like the way that was written. Anyway, quote, future studies should use longitudinal data to provide stronger evidence for the role of narcissism in interpreting keepsakes from past relationships as trophies. Additionally, further studies should more directly investigate the psychological function of keepsakes from past relationships perceived to be trophies, whether they bolster self worth. Finally, expanding the analogy between trophy prey and narcissistic trophies from love conquests is worth investigating. Whether to increase a narcissistic individual's self esteem requires an audience that admires their trophies, or whether it is sufficient to use trophies as cues for their solitary reminiscence of their romantic successes. So the reference was this was all from one study. And so I did say it in the beginning, but just again, if you want to check it out, and I cannot even try to pronounce the names of the authors. I apologize, but it's from 2020 and it's called Hunting Lovers. Narcissists Keep Trophies from Their Past Relationships. And it's from Personality and Individual Differences. So, yeah, again, this is a very hefty subject that I can make many episodes about. This is the first. Hopefully, it's not too boring, but I thought it was really interesting. And this was basically just for an article review. So, the article itself is going to go a lot more in depth because this is just reviewing the article and a little bit of an overview of it as well. But I, it creeped me out. It creeped me out. And yeah, so just something to be curious about, maybe even, you know, retroactively think about if that was a thing, if you were ever with a narcissist or are with a narcissist. Is that a thing? Was that a thing? Kids not being part of it, hopefully. For some, they might, oof, I don't want to analyze that really, but yeah, they need to just leave kids out of all their bullshit, their stuff, right? Anyway, hopefully that was interesting and somewhat helpful. Uh, I think my next one, I don't know what I'm going to do on that yet. I think I will go ahead and do another episode on narcissism. I do have a little bit more time, so that's going to be another super casual episode. Yes, this is what I'm wearing to the gym. I apologize. But I want sometimes it just be casual, just us hanging out, especially talking about things like this. It's a heavy, hefty subject. I would like to end this though by saying that if you are still healing from being in a toxic relationship, such as being with someone who has narcissistic personality disorder, whether overt or covert, I encourage you to continue on your healing journey. Keep learning about this and understanding that it is very difficult to go through. The aftermath is very difficult to go through. Once you can get away from it, it's worth it, but there's still going to be healing that is needed. And I also want to acknowledge that going from an overt narcissistic relationship can be, you can do healing and think that, you're good to go. And then you meet somebody and it's great. The relationship is amazing. But you start blaming yourself for stuff and then they're blaming you like, oh, this is you're just so damaged from your previous relationship that you're pulling me into it. And, eventually you realize that, oh, they're a narcissist too. Hmm. Or whether covert or overt, you can go from one to the next relationship like that without seeing it until it's too late. And it's difficult and it is probably hard not to blame yourself entirely for that. But just know that once you have learned, then it's just time to do better. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to get stuck in the same circle. And it's also not your fault that you just want to be loved and have give and receive love in the same way and want to be treated really well and that you treat someone really well and you just want the same in return and have loyalty and honesty and respect and things that you just don't really get in a relationship with a toxic person and be with someone that doesn't yell at you all the time or make you feel like you're walking on eggshells or make you feel like you have to be small and quiet. And yeah, that's something else that I feel like is often a correlation. Narcissists love people that are going to shut up. They love people that are not going to fight back and call them out. Not that they don't love to be hostile no matter what. However, if you're going to have an opinion, if you're going to have a stance, that is definitely going to give them fuel. And I don't want to encourage you to bite back in case it's a dangerous situation. Don't ever put yourself in danger. I just I want to say through it, don't forget who you really are. On the other side of this, you will be a different person. And it is normal to mourn the loss of who you were because it is like a grieving process of who you were before. And yet, it's still worth it to go through all of the healing. And you can still have so much love for yourself. And I just encourage you to not only heal, but take up space again. Take up all the space everywhere you go. Walk in like you own the place. It's not about ego. It's not about overdoing it. It's just getting to that point where you start to balance out again. And it's not that you actually think you're better than anybody else. It's just rebuilding. It's rebuilding. And unfortunately, in toxic relationships, they tend to make people feel very small and like they do have to be quiet. Just shut up, look pretty, be there when I'm ready to use you, do what I want you to do, have no opposing opinion whatsoever. And you're still going to get yelled at anyway, but your fault. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's hard to deal with, very hard to deal with. So at least do the work on your own while you're in it and when you're out of it to not entirely lose yourself and to regain that strength of self, keep self love or get it back. Really focus on yourself again and what you need and what you deserve is the best. And if you, like, as a woman, if you say, I want princess treatment as a bare minimum, that's not asking for too much. There's somebody out there that would give you that. If not, it's okay to be single. Be single. That's totally fine. And to anyone that says, well, if you acknowledge that you're in a toxic relationship, just leave. And this is even to the people that have resources to leave. Let's say they make good money on their own and they absolutely, it is easier for them to just leave. I want to point out the fact, the statistical fact that the most dangerous time for a person to leave a toxic relationship is when they're leaving. That's the most dangerous time in that relationship, I should say, is when they try to leave. It's not a matter of it being so simple as just leave. It can be dangerous. It has to be well thought out. It has to be prepared for. If not, it can get scary. And for some, it does get even more dangerous. But yes, they absolutely need to get out. They do. And they need resources. They need resources and they need help. And therapy is a great idea. Any kind of therapy. It doesn't have to be psychotherapy. It doesn't have to be whatever. It can be alternative therapy. The coaching that I have that I do that I really like is a lot of somatic therapy. There can be equine therapy, music therapy, like there's so many different types out there. So don't give up on what works well for you. But in the meantime, just do everything that you can to love yourself, to heal however you can, and to hold on to your sense of self and your self-worth and all of the good things. And this ended up being a lot at the end. But anyway, I'm also noticing that the saturation on this camera is really bad. I need to shut the window, I guess. Anyway, sorry. So that's all for today. I hope that it was somewhat helpful. If you have any questions, if you have any sort of, I would like you to talk about this topic, then you can send it in to my website. I have a contact form on vikingwitch.shop, or you can comment below. But if you send it on the forum, then like it's anonymous. I'm not going to say anybody's name regardless, but if you comment, then obviously that's going to be open to whoever sees it. And also, I do have some guests that will be on, which is super exciting and has been a lot of fun. If you want to potentially be a guest, then I'm leaving it open. So you can go to vikingwitch.shop and leave your public social media, preferably TikTok. That way I can, like, and you have a video posted. That way I can actually see who you are. And the only other requirements that I have is that you can access Zoom because it will be through Zoom. And so you'll need audio, good audio. I have a hard time hearing. I would prefer you to be in a place where it's not a lot of background noise and a lot of interruption. Sometimes things happen. I get that. Happens to me too. Um, But yeah, that would probably be the biggest thing. I do unless it's a very sensitive topic, and you can note that. You can say, like, "I'm in a really dangerous situation, but I wanna tell my story. I can't show my face, but we can talk on Zoom, then we'll just keep your camera part off, and it can be private through there." And, of course, you can choose what name shows up on Zoom. But anyway, yeah, so just please send in your public social media and the topics that you would like to discuss. And if it is a very, very, very sensitive topic, then just add that in there because privacy is very important. I think that's all. I will say that I'm not really interested in talking about politics though. Um, but whatever you want to talk about, let's see what you have to say and maybe we can set something up. Until then, take care. Sorry I'm still all over the place. This is new for me. I'm learning, I'm figuring this out. Thanks for going on the journey with me if you're watching this. And putting up with my rambling. Bye.